Dr. Mario Sacasa. Welcome to Faith in Marriage today.
Well, it is great to be back. We have another important show for you.
In case you didn't know, enrollment in church is down overall. But in particular, we see a great disparity between men and women involvement in church. In general, women are more religious than men, and going way back to the Bible, women have typically been better at understanding prayer, faith, and relationship with Jesus. However, we have seen many great male saints emerge in the history of the church. St. Paul preaching to the Gentiles, St. Lawrence being martyred on a grill, St. Augustine in his conversion, St. Thomas More in his fidelity to his faith, family, and country, and even modern saints like JP2 standing up for the truth and dignity of the human person. For goodness sakes, God himself came as a man. The second person of the Trinity could have incarnated as a female, but God chose to come as a male. I feel there is a gap, a bridge between the magnanimous call of being a Christian man and the average guy in the pew accepting that vision for himself. In general, men have settled for worldly prestige versus the path of holiness. They don't see how pursuing sanctity is the most arduous task a man can do, and therefore the most gratifying one as well. That's the focus of today's show. We want to find ways of encouraging men in their journey of faith and seeing how relationship with Jesus is not a threat to their masculinity or careers, but rather the surest way of becoming the best man, father, husband, teacher, business leader, entrepreneur, lawyer, doctor, etc. possible. When men pray together and journey together in faith, powerful things happen. So stay with us as we dive further into this topic, and we'll be right back.
The Willwoods community invites married couples to break away from their busy schedules and spend quality time rejuvenating and enriching your relationship on a weekend married couples retreat. Held at the beautiful St. Joseph Abbey in Covington, you and your spouse will spend time growing closer in your marriage through inspiring talks, private couple time, personal alone time, reconciliation, Eucharistic adoration, and the celebration of the Mass. To register for your getaway, go to faithinmarriage.org.
Welcome back. It's great to have all of you with us. Again, we are joined by former coach and all-pro receiver and founder of Crossing the Goal, Danny Abramowitz. And returning to the show is David Dawson Jr., Director of the Office of Marriage and Family Life for the Archdiocese of New Orleans. So thank you, gentlemen, for being here with us today. How are you guys doing?
Great. Absolutely.
Fantastic. Well, we are excited. We are too. We're excited about having this conversation, a nice, long, in-depth conversation about men's spirituality and the problems that men are facing and what are some solutions to these particular problems and challenges that we're facing with men in church today. But really, kind of right out of the gates, I want to start with this question. Like, Danny, you've been doing men's ministry for years and doing a lot of work with men. What do you see as the biggest obstacle in getting men to church and getting men involved in their faith?
I think not only the obstacle, I think male spirituality, for whatever reason, to me is the number one problem, not only in the Catholic Church, but in Christian churches all over the country, probably all over the world. And it's hard to figure out why. There's so many obstacles and so many things to get a man's attention away from God. You know, it's almost to say God's name or even Jesus Christ, man, that's not a manly thing to do. It's almost the devil's done a good job of saying, you know, tough guys don't do that or whatever. You know, watch what you say, this type of thing. And this is one of the areas I think it's just the idea of not knowing Jesus personally. How are you going to know him? You have to follow him. You have to find out about him. You have to read about him. You have to get into Scripture. And guys aren't really doing that.
I see that too. You know, so many people there's so many more temptations. I feel like these days. I mean, there's always temptations, no matter what timeline you look at. But it seems like there's more. There's more technology. There's more opportunities to watch different shows and binge watch, and there's all kind of different other things that are enticing our focus away from what is most important. So we see ourselves distracted, and we see a lot more of these temptations a little sweeter than maybe before.
So we're speaking about like culturally that there's kind of two things that are playing out here. One is that in general, as a society, it's just harder to talk about faith. It's harder to talk about conversations of religion without feeling like you're imposing it on people. And so any sort of public discussion about Jesus is just more difficult today than years past. That's one. Second thing is in terms of like how being a Christian is perceived as something that like is that just for girls or for boys? Like if I perceive myself as a Christian man, like am I people going to think that I'm weak? Then the third thing that you spoke about also is just even temptation, like that's out there. So those are kind of the cultural norms that I think we can all acknowledge are attacking and preventing men from buying into this notion of being a faithful individual. But David, is there anything that the church itself is doing or not doing to bring men back into the fold?
Yeah, I think one of the things is just a lack of an understanding or an articulation of what does it look like to pray, to take this stuff seriously. Like, I think for men in particular, because we tend to be wired to be kind of project oriented. What is the project of prayer, of spiritual growth even look like? What's the goal? What does it look like to win? And if I don't know the goal, and I certainly don't know how to get there, I'm going to subconsciously really avoid that. I'm not comfortable with getting in there and not knowing how to operate the machine, So it can be very difficult, I think. There's an assumption that the basics, we all know the basics already, and therefore we just need to get in there and do it. But getting in there and doing it, I think, is the hard part. That there's not much of a picture or a model of what does that look like? What are the very basic goals and activities? And I think for a lot of us, the models tend to be female. Especially here in the South, our grandmothers are kind of the ones who are holding fast to the faith, and we figure hopefully she's done enough and they can get me in, Yeah. But the truth is, it's hard for, I think, men in particular to say, okay, I'm going to do it like grandma. I'm going to do it like my wife, and because I know intuitively it's not going to look like that. It can't feel like that because that's not who I am.
Right. Yeah, no, I think you're right on it because like men are willing to spend lots of money to go on conferences, to be better business leaders, to be better managers of people. And conferences are willing to spend lots of money on speakers to come in to do these things. I mean, I see these guys sometimes making six figures for just for a speaking gig. I mean, like, we're doing good work here at Willwoods, but we're not doing that good, you know what I mean? Like, but like, so guys see that like they're willing to put money on the table for something that they see as a win for them. And there's something that very pragmatically edifies their life, right? What are we doing? Like, what are we doing with the church?
If you was really listening, he says, what the mother and the grandmother said. Yeah. He didn't say nothing about a father in here. Yeah. To me, we all have to take part of this deal, blame.
You're right.
Started back in my generation, not evangelizing within your own family. Now, the church has dropped the ball, I think, too, now, is if you want to do it this way or you want to do it that. No, it's not easy to be Catholic.
That's right.
But we have to teach them. Somewhere along the line, they've lost the road, like God has called all of us to holiness. Now, holiness doesn't mean walking around with a Bible and you're hearing preach, but it's living by godly principles. Are we living by godly principles? Guys have to know what this is, and it has to come from the man part of it. The spiritual head of the family is the man. That doesn't mean dictator. Right. He's the one that leads the family. We're finding on a lot of occasions the dads are dropping the kids off and the wife off at church, and he's back watching whatever he's watching or doing whatever he's doing. Mm-hmm. He's not doing. So what does the kid learn from that? What's the boy learn? That's not important. So when he goes to college, he misses Mass one time. It's easy after. He'll go because Mom. Once he gets married, what does he remember? Honey, I'll drop you off at Mass. See what I'm saying? It perpetuates itself, and that's what we're into now. Now we have to turn that around.
Well, studies actually showing that, right? I mean, there was a study that was done that said if the father and the mother both attend regularly, there's 33% of their children, will end up as a regular churchgoer, and 41% will end up going irregularly. 25 will not go at all. If the father is irregular and the mother is regular, 3% of the children will not become regular goers themselves. 59% will become irregular, and 38% will be lost. Now, this is interesting. If the father is non-practicing but the mother is regular, only 2% will become regular worshipers, and 37% will attend irregularly. 60% of the children will be lost. 60%. So this is a non-practicing father, but the mother is very regular. The mother is committed. if the father is regular, now this is the word it makes all the sense. If the father is regular, but the mother is not, 38% will become worshipers if the mother is irregular, but the father is regular. 44% will become regular worshipers with the non-practicing mother. So if the father does not go to church, regardless of the mother's intention, 2% of children will become regular churchgoers.
I think part of this is if we think about what we expect or what we see from mom and dad. Mom provides us with, am I safe? Am I secure here today?
Yes.
Do I have value here today?
Yes.
We look to dad. I mean, we intuitively know that dad's not going to waste his time on something that's not like concrete and real.
Yeah.
The dad, even if he says, listen to your mother, this is important,
Yeah.
God is real, we should pray, we should go to church, but we all know what's really important to dad, and we all know that he's going to spend his time on what he knows is real and worth doing. And so what we read from that is that this is what you do to make people happy, to make mom happy.
Yeah.
These are the things you say to make sure you're crossing your T's, dotting your I's. But when it comes down to it, no one's watching, it's not really real.
Well, it's the mother. The mother teaches us about home life.
That's right.
The father teaches us about the world outside the home.
Where am I headed?
And so the mom is doing an amazing job teaching us about love and responsibility at the home. But then when kids, boys, are becoming men, and they've seen that the father hasn't taught them at all about that, then it's not important.
Let me show you the part that's really bad is the millennials. Only 8% of millennials practice their faith, and the biggest thing is they're not, I don't go because of this or that. They're indifferent one way. You do whatever you want to do is fine with me. Right. Now, where did they get that from? They had to get that from someone. They're not getting it from the house. This is important. Like when I was growing up, my dad was like, me and my brother, we're going to Mass on Sunday at 10. It wasn't like we have a discussion about it. You know what I mean? That's what we're going to do. Now, is that the right way? I mean, it worked pretty good, you know. But what I'm saying is there's a lot of things that have to be dealt with here and to turn this thing around.
Yeah, and so obviously it's a multifaceted problem, and we can look at the shifts in the culture, and like you said, from one perspective of things being overly rigid and saying you got to go, to now maybe too far the other direction where things are too lax. Like you said, millennials and even the post-millennials are indifferent one way or the other. It's not an issue. But we got to have to reclaim, I guess, kind of that middle ground. And I feel, Lisa, we've been talking about models and men being models, but even the church just kind of promoting the faith as a win to men, in reminding men that like this isn't just something for your childhood stories that you communicate as a kid. Like you said, we need to know this for our homes, but you're actually going to need that faith when you go into the world. Right. Yeah. You're going to need that relationship with the Lord to go tackle the things that you want to do. And so the notion of a calling, the notion of aspiring to greatness, the notions of trying to be more than what your circumstances are given to you, we need to reclaim all of that. That's what I think is going to encourage guys.
And we live in, what principles are we basing our life on? Are it on godly principles or the principles out here in the world? Right. Mm-hmm. We better be doing on godly principles. What are they? What are those principles in your life? What do you live in your life? What is it important to you? Why is your faith important to you, or is it not?
That's so crazy. It speaks to the heart, because when you're saying that, like my journey in faith, I was living my own principles, right? Like I was taking more stock from the world than I was about what the church was saying, what God was saying. And no matter how many times I tried to finagle that, I never felt satisfied. I always felt empty. I felt broken. I felt lost. But then it's only when I by the grace of God, surrendered to the faith, surrendered to God, and trust in His love, that things started making sense for me. It gave me purpose, gave me focus, gave me an identity of something that was greater than me. It was amazing. And so that I got lost in the shuffle. I got lost with the passions. But then finding the truth in Christ, man, it has set me free.
I think part of the difficulty for us as men is, and really for anybody, but if I'm going to be a leader in this, I've got to be confident that I know how it works. And I think for most of us, we struggle to believe that God does real concrete things in the world. If maybe He's real, but what does He really do? Yeah. And how do I get access to that? And if I don't know that, it's going to be hard for me to pass that on. Yeah. Right? And it's going to be hard, like you said, it's going to be hard for me to be able to say, here's why you need faith as you move forward. The only reason I know that I need faith moving forward in the real world is because I've seen and experienced that God actually does stuff. Right. And I think that for us is the good news. We don't have to be geniuses. We don't have to be scholars. We don't have to listen to the right podcasts, although that can be helpful. I think what is necessary is that we fight the battle of making ourselves available to God doing stuff.
Yeah,
period.
we've got something coming up too. On the break, we're going to talk more about a specific opportunity that we can do to do this.